Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Todd's Pod. Today is a day I have a good friend of mine named Bryan. Come on in, Bryan. Let me. We hug. I'm a hugger. Everybody knows I'm a hugger. So, Bryan, how are you?
Well,
You're well.
yes.
Yeah. So, I always start out with a little story, right? And
Okay.
so, me and Bryan were in recovery together. We were in treatment in a place called ITP. We were there together, and Bryan was one of those guys that I kind of looked up to, right? And anyway, one week they had this election for the president, man's president, right? You remember that?
Smartest young guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I got nominated and I refused the nomination. And Veronica, which was the lady that was over it all, she called me in her office. She said, "Well, next time they nominate you, you can't say no. You have to accept it." So I said, "I have to." And she said, "Yeah." So next time I got nominated, I'm thinking to myself, okay, who in here is more popular than me that I know is going to win, and I don't have to be it, so I nominated Bryan. And of course, Bryan won. But how you doing today, Bryan?
I'm good.
Good.
I actually remember Todd when he came into treatment the first day, and he didn't shut the heck up. And me and you almost got into it because I was like, why does this guy keep talking? And I was not well still. I had just gotten in myself like a few days before that, and you were still on one and talking a mile a minute.
I do that when I get nervous.
And then we became good friends, of course. But I just remember being like, it's this guy. Because you were standing right behind me.
Yeah, and I was like, why is this guy talking to me? So, Bryan, tell us a little bit about where you come from, what's led you up to where you're at, and things like that. Let's hear a little bit about your story.
So I am originally from Chicago. Grew up in a lower middle class family. I think it's important to say that I grew up in a home that was very abusive. I'm not the victim of that because everything that happens to me is part of God's plan.
Yep.
But it had certain effects on me,
Mm-hmm.
kind of drastic effects. And when you grow up in a house like that, you learn to deceive. More importantly, you learn to deceive yourself. So it can be complete chaos and you're going to say you're fine. And a lifetime, up until I was 12, 13, 14, when they kind of quit beating their ass a little bit, so to speak. You're already programmed. So looking inward was super difficult for me. When they say that some are sicker than others, I'm with the sicker than.
I was one of those unfortunate ones that hated thinking it'd work.
But and don't get me wrong, I have made amends to my folks and they've made amends to me, and we had a great relationship. My mom passed away in January. I didn't do drugs. I didn't even drink when I was 21. I went on and had 3 drinks, and I was the guy known for getting a little tipsy after 3 drinks, and would go home and go to bed because I had work in the morning. It wasn't until I was a police officer. As you can boo, that's fine. Boo that man.
No.
That's where they even told me when I joined, like, hey, you're gonna drink now. But they didn't believe that I didn't drink. I remember when I got hired, and so that's when the alcoholism part kicked in. For sure, I could drink longer and more than other people, and I could drink several times a week. And that's when I also started using ecstasy, because he was the one that do a drug called ecstasy, and cocaine. And so my addiction started there. I quit that police department job before I almost got in trouble because I had connections to like organized crime and stuff like that. Yeah. Bad guys more fun.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing anything illegal. I didn't know, like, DA was tapping my phone, I was being followed, and I didn't know any of this, that some girl had reported I was doing all these things, which a few things were true about my drug use.
Right.
But no, the rest of it was. But that's how my addiction started. And I went from decorated police officer, youngest guy in the department, to drug addict, hardcore, losing his place, losing his car, losing, like, within a year and a half, I would say. So it was demoralizing. For somebody who didn't have any self-worth or self-value, it just crumbled. I just crumbled. I had nothing else to fall back on. So that's when I ended up coming to Texas, because I thought, hey man, if I just get away from here, I'll be good. But you show up everywhere you go. So I ended up in San Antonio with my brother, and I managed drinking, and I did drinking, and I was using cocaine for the next 10 years. I just work hard, play hard, But I knew deep down inside that I had a problem. I knew it was not controllable, clearly.
Yeah.
Until I was here in San Antonio, I moved up here from the valley, and I ended up on the streets. I went to the streets intentionally because I didn't want to do that to my brother who I was staying with, and I just discovered methamphetamine. I was like, this stuff is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. You do meth, you do nothing else.
Yeah. Well, I was like, this is like cocaine on steroids. I'll be up for days. This is amazing.
Yeah.
But I went to the streets, and the weird part for me was that on the streets, it was a sigh of relief because I didn't have to hide it from anybody. For the first time, I was like, I don't have to hide it. Everybody out here's messed up. I'm homeless on the streets. I can do as much dope as I want to, and nobody's gonna say a thing and be as high as I want. So,
Yeah.
and that's what led me to Haven.
Okay.
I was on probation down in the valley. Somehow I managed to not report for like a year because they lost me in their system. And I contacted one day, told them I was in treatment. Like, Bryan, it says you've been in treatment for 2 years. Oh yeah, it was. She's like, you can't be in treatment forever. And I was in and out, of course, but I knew that I couldn't stay sober more than 3 days, let alone 3 years.
Yeah.
And so that's when I went to Haven for the first time. And it took me, I went to rehab, Haven, like 2.5 times. I went to Lifetime, all within like a 2-year period. And I just would get out and relapse and go back in, relapse and go back in. And so I finally was able to pick up some time, work the steps the way they were meant to be worked, and which was life changing, you know.
Yes.
The first time you do that, you really work the steps and do them, and you become a completely different person. And I really wanted to be sober. And like I told you, that abuse that I went through at home, I had several other issues besides just addiction. I was just one little drop in the bucket of things that were going on with me. And so I would pick up 2 years and I would relapse. And I'd pick up a year and I'd relapse. I would never stay out. At most it would be a week or 2 weeks because I didn't want to be out.
Right.
I'd come back and I'd work the steps again, and it can be demoralizing. It can be very difficult, but I just never gave up on myself, fortunately. God gave me that gift of resiliency.
Yep.
Because I've relapsed more times than most people would care to admit. But I found that, especially this last time when me and my wife separated, I relapsed because that's what I used to do, because I'm super codependent. And
Right.
my identity I build around other people and things in my life, whether it's my family, whether it's my job, that's what my attachment gets to. And when I lose that, I fall back on nothing because I haven't done any inward work. I don't know who I am. I'm not okay with me. And so I started this last, I'll say like 8 months, I've been on a healing journey. And so I asked some friends who have been on healing journeys, and like, what do you do? How do you go heal? Because clearly there's more wrong with me than just working the steps, and I need something more. And so that's when my friend Shanice pointed me to Dr. Rob Kelly's office. They have the breath box. So it's guided breath work. And it was life-changing. It was the first time. And what the breath work does is you're breathing a certain way, and you have headphones and eye coverings. It opens up your subconscious just by breathing.
Yeah.
And then they take out all that negative stuff. And the first time it made me sob like a baby because they're telling me that one was on like shame and guilt and past traumas, and so I'm sobbing, trying to breathe and do these things. But then they replace it with like positive stuff. And they do something called anchoring. And they anchor it into your subconscious. And so instead of seeing the world of the lens of everybody's out to get me all the time, and that's where I react from, that's why I can't respond to anything. I just keep reacting, because if you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. And I'm going to hurt you 10 times more than you hurt me.
Right, just so you don't hurt me again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me interrupt you for a second. I don't mean to stop you.
Yeah.
But you're on you kind of struck something with me, okay? So what did they call this process that you did with the breathing?
Called breath work.
Breath work. Okay.
Guided breath work.
So breath work, and that worked for you for your past trauma and things like that, right? So for me, we have I was never a cop, okay? But
I want that recorded.
yeah, I want that on record. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, cops are good. If it hadn't been for a police officer that arrested me, I'd probably be dead today. So there is that factor. So I don't have any.
God's still using them.
Yes, he is. But there are a few out there. Well, one of them got sober, so. No, I'm kidding. But so, you know that my history, my childhood consists of a lot of abuse and a lot of trauma. And so when you were talking about when you got your teen years and stuff, what I was hearing, so I didn't know what it was to be a good father because I didn't have one, right? So when I became a father, I emulated what I thought a good father should be. That's the tool I think that we gain in abuse, is that ability to emulate what we think the room wants us to be. And I could walk into any room and be anything.
Yeah.
Like that, just real quick, a flip of the switch. I, like you, I didn't have an identity. I didn't know who I was at all, right? And so my pathway was some counseling, but CBT, that cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah, it didn't work for me. We keep going through this. It's just not working, you know. But EMDR was what got for me.
I've done that.
That was freaking phenomenal for me.
Yeah.
So now I'm free of all that.
It's a miracle.
It is. It's so crazy. And yeah, like first time I did this thing, you know what the
yeah.
Right? And a couple months later, I noticed like these monitors that played off all my trauma all the time, because that's what it was.
Yeah.
My trauma, get high, get drunk, trauma slides a little, it's over here, and I can talk to Bryan. You know, and I'm not high or drunk, and it comes back. Well, you know, those monitors, after about a month, they started disappearing. Like, oh, crap. I have clarity, which is all I had. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. EMDR is like a huge tool, and I think it's important for people to know that there's other tools.
Exactly. That's where I was going.
To enhance their recovery.
Exactly. So I'm thinking to myself, I want to get on this breathwork thing just to experience it, because regardless, I still have negative thoughts sometimes. I mean, I think everybody always does. I think it's kind of normal, but sometimes I think mine are a little extreme. You know, so Rosemary had surgery not too long ago.
Okay.
And I left the hospital because the surgery was cold. Her room was not, and I was dressed for cold, and so I came home to have a sandwich and change. You know, and I'm going back down. I called her. She doesn't answer the phone, right? This thing automatically goes to, oh my God, something tragic has happened, and I'm going to walk into this hospital room, and all the doctors are going to be like, where were you at, sir? Blah blah blah, right? But that's how that goes, right? So I got that wrench in my gut and all that stuff, you know. And you know what the old me would have done? Instead of going to the hospital, I went, and that's it. I wouldn't have faced that. Yeah. Faced that thing, and when I got to the hospital, it wasn't nothing about it. She just Mary was on.
Yeah. That's it.
But that's the things that so I think that it's an ongoing work. I think when you come from where we come from, I think you're right. I think you did the MBR and you did that. I think it's something we always gonna not necessarily have to, but I want to. I mean, I want to experience better, right?
Yeah, man, it had my whole body vibrating.
Really?
The body is literally like vibrating, and I got this distinct feeling of how powerful I was. How powerful we all are. We don't know how to tap into that.
Right.
That's how people do, and if you believe in things like manifestations and
I do. Oh yeah.
That's what you are connecting to, and that comes from God. You're connecting to God is what you're doing. And I've also done something else that helped me greatly, that, you know, and I don't know how people in recovery feel about it, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but is ayahuasca. I have a friend who's a recovery coach who has connections to natural medicines. And so I went to Laredo, and I've done it twice already, and it was another most amazing experience. The first time I did it, I think I cried for like 3 hours straight, but it wasn't just tears of sorrow, it was tears of gratitude, tears of joy, and the feeling that I am connected to the cosmos. And again, that same kind of breathwork feeling where I feel like, dude, I'm literally connected to God. What's within me is connected to the heavens. And that's where my power comes from.
Yep.
And that's another thing that helped me be okay with me. For the first time, I'll be 45 tomorrow. And for the first time in my life, I'm living for my own expectations instead of other people's. Even in AA, I had, my AA friends need me to do this, and I'm supposed to be doing that, and wife thinks I should be doing this, so that's what I'm going to do. And I had done that growing up too, living for my parents' expectations. And so then I started learning about living for others' expectations. And it's okay to think, be okay with worrying about what other people think of you. That's a normal human trait. But to be okay, like, it doesn't really matter what they think about you. Yeah. So that was another powerful thing that helped heal me. It's just been about healing. So
always.
Yeah.
I I feel very fortunate that, well, maybe fortunate, maybe not, because I didn't have to go through do the ayahuasca thing.
Yeah.
These other things to achieve to find out who I was, and I was able to build who I was, right?
Yeah.
Not that the idea doesn't strike me.
Yeah.
Because any kind of connections to spiritual I can get, I enjoy those things.
Yeah.
At one point during my addiction, I wanted to do ibogaine. If you've ever heard of ibogaine.
I have a friend trying to do that. Super expensive soda too.
Yeah, but it's like and so it's actually legal in Mexico and it's legal in Canada, right? And here I am, a heroin addict, and I called my sister in Washington State. I was like, hey man, next time you go visit our other sister in Canada, pick me up some ibogaine and ship it to me, right? And I had her almost convinced to do it. And then my other sister in Canada, she's a nurse, and she said, oh no, you'll have a heart attack, can't do that. And I'm like, it's legal. But anyway,
I think it's important though to know that, especially for people in recovery, because we tend to, like, if there was a recovery pill, we would take it. I would take a recovery pill. They're like, hey, just take this pill and you can solve all your problems and you won't have that. And so I think it's important to say that things like ayahuasca and breathwork aren't cure-alls. They're not going to keep you sober, just as like just going to meetings isn't going to keep you sober.
I think honestly, if and I'm not speaking for you, but tell me if I'm wrong, but I firmly believe in my story that if the 12 steps weren't there, I wouldn't be here.
Right. It's one thing that works.
I mean,
I'm actually going through it again with my sponsor on the 12 and 12 recently.
Yeah.
Just to experience him in this new person that I've become.
Yep.
And I've learned to kind of more live this program on what works for me, which has been another step in the right direction.
Well, so I'm a firm believer that everybody has their own path, right? And if you think about it, okay, there's no two people have the same path. Yeah. Similarities, yes, there's similarities in everybody, and everybody can find similarities to everybody at some point, right? But no two will ever be the same. And I tell people, find your own path, man. Find your own way. Don't let anybody tell you, that's not your path, or you shouldn't do this, or you should, because you will find your path, because no two humans have ever had the exact same life experience. Sure. And if you think about the history of the world, how many billions of people that have been on this earth, and no two have ever had the same path, that means it's a lot of different paths. Yeah. So it's the avenues are unlimited, man. I'm glad that you shared all that with us, because I often wonder sometimes, and do I think that if somebody in recovery goes and does something in a controlled environment, for their mental health or whatever, it's one thing to go to a party and build a bonfire and everybody's doing ayahuasca and y'all jumping around. That's different. Yeah. But when it's in a controlled type setting and used therapeutically, I don't consider that not sober. Unless, it's like there was a guy that, I forget what it was they were doing, but he's like, ketamine. Doing ketamine, and he said, this is going to be great. You ought to try this ketamine, and it's going to this and that. And I told him, I said, dude, tell you what, problem I have with that is I'll come do your ketamine on Monday, but you better have a dose for me every day after that for the rest of my life. Because I'm not a guy that, if you give me something that,
do ketamine treatments, I know, but then again, that's in a controlled environment where you're being.
Right, but still, I'm afraid of all that stuff, dude. I'm totally afraid of that.
I was afraid of ketamine too.
I
you suggested it to me, I hadn't done it just because.
No, I don't think that's because all that.
I'm afraid of how it's going to make me feel, and am I going to want more?
Well, so I am not against the mushroom type therapeutics or things like that are natural and things like that. And I don't even know what ketamine does to you, but I won't even go there, because I know me. I know my addict self, and if somebody said, hey, here's a microdose mushroom, take it for your PTSD, or here's some real shrooms, take them for your PTSD, I'd be like, yeah, I better take them on because I know me, and I just know me, and I know that if I ever go down that road, I'm probably gonna be a mess. But
I think your intentions have a lot to do with it too.
Like,
why are you actually there?
Yeah.
And what I noticed about some of these places that I go, these people have properties just for people to come heal. Mm-hmm. They vet you. They talk to you on the phone first. See what your intentions are. Why are you here? Are you here to get fucked up? Or are you here to heal? That's what they're looking for. They want people with pure intentions to come and use their medicine.
Right, of course. And God didn't give man knowledge for nothing. Simple as that. You know, I've had people that in recovery, they're like, you know, and they think that automatically that God is gonna, like, if they get sick, well, God's gonna cure them, right? And I'm like, well, you know, when you think about that, I said, okay, well, that's fine. God's gonna cure you, but God gave that doctor the knowledge to give you the medicine to cure you. So isn't God curing you by going to the doctor? Why are you refusing to go to a doctor when, you know? And sometimes I try to twist their mind a little bit because, I mean,
Well, and you could be getting sick for God's part of God's plan, just like He brings you through trials and tribulations, like financial hard times, or just things that you're supposed to learn something from. So I think the same way, if you do get sick, like whether you're supposed to learn something, the people around you are supposed to learn something, so God's going to use it for a purpose.
Yeah.
That's just my experience.
So I like your statement about the fact that you're not a victim of your childhood, because I'm not a victim of my childhood either. Because you know what, if God hadn't allowed me to go through that process and learn from that, you and I couldn't have some of this conversation that we have, right? Yeah. So I think every day of our lives is, like you said, a lesson. There's something in every day that God's teaching us to prepare us for the next day.
I learned that from my sponsor.
Yeah. So
what you have me practicing, because I really struggle with surrender. That's mine. Even today, I still, some days I'm just like, everybody's like, I'm driving super fast and I just want to do this and my little plans and desires, right? But where was I going with this?
Surrender. Trauma.
Oh, yeah. My sponsor had me, everything that happens to you throughout your day, especially the bad things, you have to thank God for, because it's something that you prayed about, it's something that you needed, you just didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so it's all just
it's all part of His plan.
Yeah. So today, when someone cuts me off and I get upset, I just let them go. In fact, I don't get out of bed either. I'll back off, give them some room. Just those little things that help.
Sometimes I get a little rapt.
Oh,
you know, when I'll be going down the road, I'll be like, you know, and then I realize, wait a minute, yeah, and I'll catch myself. But you know what? It's usually in the mornings. It's usually on my first commute, and it's usually because I didn't do my work before I left the house. I didn't put my mind in the right place, so I'm in a different place. I'm in the mode of everybody else's mode of, gotta go, instead of, okay, God, take me. You know?
Well, that's when I pray. My time to pray is, so I read my codependency meditation book, I send out my gratitude list, and then kind of when I'm on my way to my truck, and I'm gonna drive to work is when I pray. So it helps me. That's when I'm like, okay, what do I really need to ask God's help with today? Like, where am I really struggling? Who else can I pray for? Those kind of things. And so my mind isn't even on people's crazy driving. It's kind of.
The third step prayer is that's my go-to. I've said that prayer almost 99.9% of the days since I left ITP in the morning. Sometimes, man, dude, when I first got sober, I had to say that.
Were you there with Big Book Dick?
Yeah, so yeah. You know, it's the funny thing about Big Book Dick, and those of you that don't know Big Book Dick, he was a very good man, very serious about teaching the 12 steps, but he knew how to get through. You know, I was walking from food bank into the TC, and him and I were walking together, and I asked him, I said, Big Book, I said, you really think I can do this? He looked at me and said, sure you can, Todd. You know, I was like, sure you can, Todd, and the way that he talked. And did you know, to this day, if I have a challenge that's in front of me that I'm wondering, you know, is this going to be something I can hear him tell me in his voice? Sure you can, Todd. And man, that carries me so far. So yeah, he's a big part of all that. Yeah.
Thursdays we have the double dicking.
Yeah. Only on the walls. Yeah. I usually sat in those chairs because I was one that would lean, and, you know.
Yeah.
You only fall asleep maybe twice in this class. That's it.
I had a sponsor that told me, "We need you."
Yeah.
Those are the 3 words that stick with me sometimes.
Yeah.
It's weird how people can say something to you that you're just so simple.
Right. You know.
It's profound.
It is, and I tell people, like, when they go to meetings and things like that, they're just full of blah blah. I say, yeah. Granted, you might walk in a meeting and 80% of it's going to be total bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, but there's going to be 3 words. There's going to be something in there. You're not there by accident, and there's going to be something.
Even if you just learn that you don't want to go back to that meeting, you learn something.
Yeah, that's true too. But there's always something, and it's funny because sometimes the newcomers say the darndest things, man. They think they don't have anything to offer to the table, right? It's like sometimes the things they say, it's like, oh wow, I never
Or something I forgot.
Yeah.
It's usually very simple, something that they picked up that's super simple and helpful that I'm like, I should be doing that.
I should be doing that. I remember when I ran around like him doing that. Yeah, because you see, I where I work, I'm involved a lot with recovery and people that are in recovery, and I see these stages. You get that 1 month stage where I'm good. I got this.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, no, not yet. But then, and it's the little things that they pick up that they march with.
I just like to hear people excited. I'm part of a group thread from the last place, South Texas Recovery Foundation on Beeville.
Yeah.
I'm still part of a group thread, and it always changes because new guys are coming in, and some people go back out, and we send gratitude lists and stuff. But seeing the hunger and the excitement for life and for recovery is always good to see. It makes you happy that guys just changed their life, and they're just so happy to be free and to be living the life they always wanted to live. Even if it's not great, they're still in the sober house, but it's almost better than it was for them.
It's a process.
Yeah.
And I don't care where you're at in this process. The old timers say, "Oh, it just keeps getting better," and I used to think that was, how the hell you're old. Not that I'm old, but he was old.
Yeah.
And and you got 20 years sobriety. You're telling me that this is fine. And I'm like, and so what? I'm 7.5 years in now. I'm like, it is. It just keeps getting better, and it's like crazy because,
Hopefully, I think you always keep getting better, even if it's just small little growths that you. So what I found is the new ways that I think about people. That's how it gets better. Actually, it's like you think about people in a new way that you've never thought about them before, just in general. Right? A less selfish, like, oh, what else am I not thinking about? Or seeing people and meeting them and being tolerant of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
At least for me. I feel like there's always so much work to do.
But the thing is that that's where the growth is.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to read a book to learn something that day.
No.
It's like, I get it. Because I definitely, I find myself sometimes, I get a little bit like, what is the word I'm looking for? Not as compassionate as I should be, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I catch myself, but by not being compassionate like I should be, it reminds me where I come from, and why I'm compassionate. It's like those kind of things that sometimes that affect me, that change me in certain ways, is because it's not a backtrack by any means, but it's just the fact that, hey, that was cruel. I used to have this thing I said about my name to other guys with my same name that had a couple more letters than I do. I used to make a joke about it, right? And I don't do that anymore because I thought, man, that probably makes them feel some kind of way. So I stopped doing that, but it's things like that that we're conscious of. I think it's our consciousness maybe expands and makes us more aware of what we're doing.
The awareness I have today is so much greater than it used to be. I found as I grow, and especially since I've been healing, I realize how incapable. The word is incapable. And so today when I meet people that are also incapable, I have to remember that they're incapable. They can only meet me as far as they meet themselves.
I like that.
You just gotta let it slide sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Well, if it was me and I wasn't in God's will, I would have had us both in front of a train a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't, without me allowing God's will to be done in my life, I would not be.
Yeah, today I was trying to think, like, what is He trying to teach me when something is happening in my life, or I've made a mistake, or I'm like struggling and going down the wrong path a little bit for like a week or something. I'm just like, man, I'm at odds with everybody. Okay, the problem is me.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I need to work on? Like, am I not praying? Like, I'm missing something. And sure enough, I'm always probably slacking on something, or
always. There's always something.
Yeah.
I guess one of the multiple times, often that He teaches me is about patience.
Yeah.
That's one that I tend to jump the gun on some things. I'm like, I'll go off on a tangent, right? And it's like, if I would have just waited 5 minutes, because I'm on this hard tangent for 5 minutes, then I get a call, hey, it's okay. Oh, well, good. And it's patience is one that I tend to And that's one that, you know, everybody has their Achilles heel maybe, or their thing that.
No, I had that experience recently. I had a flat tire on my pickup. You know, I go into a meeting. I was like, see, if I wouldn't go on this meeting, this wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Flat tire. I have lug nuts. I have everything. Spare tire in the back, and I can't get the lug nuts off. I'm starting to strip them. But when this is happening, then I have the tools. If I had to get another lug nut wrench, that didn't work. Now I completely stripped it. But I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach, this sick feeling of, oh man, my vehicle's down. Like, oh, what am I gonna do? I'm freaking out, and I don't need to do that. You know what I mean? I'm
Right.
tripping, and sure enough, yeah, even impacts can't get those. I have to torch them off today.
Yeah.
So I have to tow it back to my house and stuff. But there's a solution to it all.
Yeah.
Me freaking out, getting super nervous and anxious and stuff isn't helping anything. I'm just like pacing back and forth, and like we don't even know what the real problem is yet. So let's just be patient.
Yeah.
So calm down.
Yeah.
We're gonna fortunately God provided the money to be able to get the tow, and I have friends that can help me with this stuff. So it's like it's gonna work itself out.
Yeah. Cool.
Not the end of the world.
No, it seems like it at the moment.
Yeah.
When it's just when that gut feeling gets there, it's like
Yes.
when that gut, that's when you know, man, you just started your engines.
Yeah.
In the wrong direction. It's like
Yeah.
I'm looking forward, but I'm going in reverse. Yeah, definitely. All right, well, listen. So, what do you do now?
I'm an HVAC technician
Yeah.
for a company called Even Flow. I do residential and commercial.
Okay.
But you know what? Recovery's helped me with I found that recovery and all these things that we do for growth help you in every aspect of your life. The reason I'm really good at what I do at work with clients is because I'm able to connect with them.
Exactly.
And that is not something I used to ever be able to truly connect with people. And you do that by being vulnerable and being transparent.
Yep.
When people know that you're a normal person just like them, or you can share some experience and now they feel open enough to share their experience, it just helps with everything.
Well, I was talking yesterday. I had an individual that went to the jail with me to shadow me doing an interview in the jail, and she was asking about connection. You know, the connection that I was making with this individual, because if I can tell you. You know, like when I made the laugh and said, you know, you do math, you do nothing else. Well, anybody that's a meth head knows that's true, right? So you know that's connection, right? Well, she was watching me make these connections, and she was like, well, she doesn't have any issues. You know, she's young and in college and an intern, and she doesn't have issues like that. And how could she make? Because I told her, I said, you can connect with people. And she said, well, how would I make connections? I said, you just got to find that one thing.
Or just be yourself.
Just be yourself, and then when you hear somebody say, "I like Coca-Cola because it fizzled," there you go. You like Coca-Cola too. There's your connection right there. You know, it's not doesn't have to be drugs. It doesn't have to be alcohol. It doesn't have to be trauma. It can be anything. But that's what
sometimes people know that you genuinely care. That's enough.
Right. Exactly. You know,
Not as long as you're not BSing them, because they'll see right through.
or judging.
Yes. I've been trying to practice non-judgment.
Really?
It's weird how it creeps up in different. When I was walking around the gym, and I'm like, why am I judging everybody today? I was aware enough to notice. I'm like, dude, you're not better than anybody. You're not worse than anybody. Because it can go positive or negative, right? I'm better than everybody, or why is everybody so much better than me? And it's like you don't have to compare yourself to anybody.
Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you know, it really doesn't.
None of this actually matters.
No.
In the long run.
Yeah. You know,
We're just passing through this bitch.
this is true. You know, judgment is a big one for me. I'm very careful about not judging, right? And I mean, I'm super careful about not judging, but yet I still sometimes find myself. It's just like at the store a while ago when I said that guy probably didn't understand a word we said. That was a judgment that I had no business saying. Because I don't know that. He was just probably just on his phone. Who knows, right? You know, but it's things like that those are the things today that I try to catch myself. It's not so much the big judgments, like you said. You're walking through the gym and you're like, hey, you know, yeah. So it's those things that in recovery as we grow, it's growth and we learn, and it's these things that we're aware.
If you can spot it in somebody, it's either because you have it or you had it.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I'm like, man, the only reason that I can see this in this person, if it's a negative character defect, is because I had it. I see myself in them. So if I'm judging them, I'm judging myself.
Right. And 9 times out of 10, when somebody comes at you sideways, they might as well be holding the mirror.
Yeah.
Because they're not coming at you. You know,
Yeah.
and a lot of times people, you know, and I understand people go, but usually it's not about me.
Yeah.
I don't get wrapped up in all that. And they're like, oh, you know, I'm sorry about what I did the other day. What did you do? I don't really remember, man. I don't pay attention to all that stuff because I know that when people come at you like that, especially in recovery, you know, people blow up. And it's not, and especially when they start discovering some of those ugly, some of those ugly inner things that create fear and afraid. And so, you know, I can't stand people in recovery that when somebody does that to them, they get all back up in, you know, not that guy. I'm like, come on, wait a minute. That wasn't about you at all.
Yeah. No, it's just growth too.
Yeah.
Because I still have my moments where my instinct is to.
Of course.
We love this game. Let's hurt each other. And that's what I remember. That's not what God wants me to be. He doesn't want me to treat people that way.
So the other day, my wife and I are in Michael's, right? You know, and they had these sticks. You know, there were limbs, you know, pretty good sized limbs. And I picked one up. This is bigger than Red Walking stick. My wife said, "Yeah, you beat somebody with it." I'm thinking to myself, you know what? That's exactly what I thought when I picked it up. Why would I? Yeah. You know, and it's funny because today I don't think I would hit anybody with that stick. You know.
Yeah.
But those thoughts, you know, those things that we think sometimes. It's funny because then I put this stick back down. Because then I tried to well, you know, I could take a knife and whittle on it and make it real pretty.
Yeah.
Try to justify my thought. Yeah.
I know another reason I could get in the house.
Yeah.
Serious for this.
Yeah. But anyway, all right. Well, listen, Bryan, I'm glad that you came.
I appreciate you having me.
And I want you to come again.
Cool.
And now that you've seen the unfinished hot spot.
Yeah, no.
And the meeting place. I want you to come invite, spend time, okay?
Cool.
All right, man. Have a good day. Love you too, brother. All right, everybody. So that's going to be it for today. Like I say, the new meeting place is open at 16122 El Sendero Boulevard, El Sendero, Thousand Oaks. I get the numbers twisted sometimes, but y'all be sure and come out, attend the meeting, check us out, and I will see you again next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.